Be Frank Network. Content on this production is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It is not medical advice, nor is it intended to substitute medical treatment or diagnosis. Seek medical help if you believe that you are suffering from a mental illness or are a threat to yourself or others. By using any or all of the information provided, you do so at your own risk. Any application of the material is at the listener's discretion and is his or her sole responsibility.
Hey everybody, Doc Brian here, and welcome to Doc Talks, where we talk about people's troubles, trials, tribulations, and hopefully successes in life. Today with me, I have Christopher Laux, and he is a realtor here in the Central Arkansas area. And so, Christopher, I'm glad that you joined us today on Doc Talks.
No, thank you for having me.
So when we talked about childhood, you said you had a pretty regular childhood as anyone would know it.
I would say.
Okay. Did you grow up here in Arkansas?
Yes, I grew up on a farm in Hot Springs.
In Hot Springs.
Yes.
What kind of farm?
We called it a hobby farm. Like
Okay.
it wasn't big, but it was just like everyone had full-time jobs, but then we had a few animals to take care of
Gotcha.
in the evenings.
So chickens and
Everything
cows,
but horses.
Everything but horses.
No horses.
So you had it all.
Pretty much.
So what was your primary responsibility on the farm?
Well, since I got off school before anyone else got off work, my primary responsibility was kind of feeding in the evenings, riding around the four-wheeler up into different parts of the farm, and just make sure they're fed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you gotta make sure that they're all taken care of, not just one particular spot. Was there something that you had to do there that you just really did not enjoy?
The one thing I really did not like growing up, there's two things I didn't like. Seeing mangled chickens and stuff from being like if raccoons attacked them in the night or, neighbors' dogs, coyotes, whatever. I don't really think a 6-year-old should be seeing chickens with their intestines rolling all over the place.
Right.
And then I didn't like the neutering.
Yeah, that's not pleasant
Nah,
to watch.
I didn't like that part.
Yeah. So I think you're a hunter. You do some hunting.
Yes, I've enjoyed it.
I'm an avid deer and coyote hunter. Like I enjoy coyote more than deer.
Yes.
But I'm kind of weird in that if I kill a deer and I know the deer meat that is being served to me is from the deer I killed, I can't eat it. Or if I go fishing, I can't eat the fish that I know that I caught. It's just something weird in my mind. So we try to just put it in the freezer and not label it.
Label it? Okay,
Yeah,
so you just pull it out?
Yeah, like we don't name them or anything.
Today's a surprise.
Yeah, it's just a surprise. So what do you hunt?
Well, I've recently just started hunting about
Okay.
a couple years back. Whatever.
Yes.
Right now it's just been deer, but I do want to broaden that. When I move, I saw that there is places to hunt bison. And so I would like to go do that. I have one of my friends has talked about us going to go catch pythons in Florida.
No, thank you.
And I want to go do that.
Yeah. Well, you have you can take my share in doing that.
Absolutely.
Reptiles and snakes are not my gig. Something else about Christopher here is that you won Strongest Man Arkansas this year in your weight division. And last year you won Strongest Man Tennessee in your weight division.
Correct.
How does one even get involved in doing that kind of stuff?
I got involved by, I guess, just randomly seeing it on YouTube, Strongest Man. And then I started following it and realized I really like this. And that's just looking for gyms that have it, which is very hard to find, especially here in the South. I've noticed it's more of a Midwest and Northern sport. But I mean, it's just...
To you, it's fun.
I love it. How I've, really stepped into it. I don't know. Like I said, I probably just saw a YouTube video of the World's Strongest Man and it just clicked. I liked it. And next thing I know, I found maybe some gyms that had equipment, or I found other individuals that, are in the sport, and one thing just led to another. And now I'm here.
Gotcha. So what is your bench press personal record?
So I don't,
So you
I
don't
get asked
bench.
this constantly.
Okay.
Because I guess that's a definition of strength, and it's not. At least not in my book.
Well, you're the professional.
Yes.
So you would
strongmen
know.
do not bench press.
Okay.
We don't compete in it.
Deadlift, is that?
We do deadlifts, but bench press is not something that we compete in. So it's not something that we train per se. I have hit 405 pounds once, But no, I don't train bench.
Okay. So what is your personal record of whatever it is that you focus primarily on?
That's also a very broad question. And the reason why I'm not trying to be rude. There's always something different in the strongman competitions. They're never going to have the same thing, such as, for example, powerlifting has the same thing every time. You know,
Right.
it's a bench, you know, it's a deadlift, you know, it's a squat. You know it because there's nothing else it could be. Strongman is going to have different events every single time, and the events might have the instruments involved will be different every time too.
Gotcha.
So the basic is just to be strong as possible in all areas. So I don't know, for an example, my personal best for a deadlift, which also depends how far off the ground it is. I'm going to say in this example, on the ground, like a normal deadlift, I have hit 600 pounds.
So let me rephrase the question this way.
course.
What was your personal best that you were the most proud of in whatever it was that you did?
So the one thing I thoroughly enjoy the most, because I lift the most weight on it, so obviously I'm going to like it the most, is an 18-inch deadlift.
Okay.
Which basically is the bar is 18 inches off the ground. So they could the sides could be whatever, doesn't matter as long as the bar itself is 18 inches off the ground, which puts me right below my kneecap. I have a video of me hitting 880 on that.
Oh, wow.
I can't do that right now because I took time away from it, but that's my ultimate favorite. Yeah. Because
Wow.
it's the most weight, so why wouldn't I like that?
Yeah. And was that in a competition?
No, it was in the gym.
Okay. All right. So you lift weights, and you are now a realtor you started in October? Is that
I got
what you
licensed
said?
in October,
Licensed.
yes.
How is that in the Arkansas market now, even with COVID and interest rates and all of that kind of stuff? Is it kind of fairly normal within what you expected, or?
Nothing is normal anymore.
True. Normal is a relative term anyway.
Absolutely. And going into real estate, I had false expectations from reading, watching things on TV, etc. It's been an absolute shift, total 180 from what I thought. So, and I don't think COVID is even relative anymore in the real estate market. No one really cares anymore. But it is wild right now, and it's an everyday new learning experience.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like I thought it would be.
Yeah. And so with it being nothing like you thought it would be, is it still something you enjoy doing and are going to look forward to do, or are you a little and somewhat disappointed?
Not disappointed.
Okay.
Everything that I thought was wrong or negative is a lesson to be learned and a challenge to overcome for the me in 10 years.
Yeah. So I say a lot, FAIL is the acronym for first attempt in learning.
Yeah.
And failure's not final. We just got to take that and learn from it.
Absolutely.
So how old are you?
I will be 31 in 2 weeks.
You look like 22 or 23.
I get that every day. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I hit puberty really late. I've been aging like fine wine. You should see me 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Not a good look.
Well, so you're going to be 31.
Yes.
And you went to college for a period of time. What was your kind of thought of what you wanted to major in when you first went into college?
I had the thought of every 18-year-old. I think I just want to be in college because it looks cool. It's what the parents tell you to do. It's what everyone base your success in life on, is having some sort of education. And I understand that. When I first got in when I was 18 at UALR, I didn't know what I was going to major in. I just knew I'm here to take classes, and I'm just doing what I'm told. I've tried different majors. I've tried just a regular science degree. I've tried nursing, pharmacy, veterinarian, surgical tech, just where I thought I could make money and be comfortable. And I'm happier now being my own boss, because I am my own boss. I make my own schedule. I do what I want when I want. And there's no ceiling for opportunity in real estate. I don't have another individual dictating my salary, telling me when I'm supposed to be here, when I'm supposed to leave, tell me how long my lunch should be. I do what I want. The other day I went and saw a movie in the middle of the day because I can. So I think
you should
college,
have invited me. I would have told my boss I had to
I
go.
should have. I didn't think about it. I'm sorry. I went and saw Black Widow, but I just sometimes want some me time.
I understand.
I am thankful for college teaching me that aspect and teaching me that I'm not one of those that needs to be told. Like, I probably would do terrible in the military.
And I think that's important, though, for us to point out that the college isn't for everybody.
No.
And so when you go into college, you really kind of need to know what your end game is, what you're there, because, I mean, you could get $30,000-$50,000 in debt in 1 year of going to school. So now in college, at some point in there, you got married.
Yes.
Okay. So how old were you when you got married?
I should be able to answer this. I'm actually having trouble thinking about it. 21.
Okay. So you were really young.
Oh yeah, I was very young.
How old was she?
2 years younger than me. Yes.
So, okay. So how did y'all meet?
Facebook. But we also went to the same high school.
Okay.
We didn't know each other at the high school. She was a couple grades below me, but we were both physically present at the same time in high school.
Okay.
And then just kind of, I guess, Facebook a couple years later, something like that. Do the math.
So did you contact her, or did she contact you initially?
I really don't remember who messaged you first. I really don't remember.
Yeah. Well, we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know if you friended me or if I friended
Yeah,
you.
right? No.
Yeah. So it gets kind of muddy in the water sometimes.
Absolutely. But we did started messaging, and then we met up, obviously, in person.
Yeah. That, like I said, that's a young time to get married. And statistically, in that age of getting married, it's a higher divorce rate within that time period. And from what I understand, you did eventually get divorced.
Correct.
And how long were you married prior to divorce?
3.5, 4 years.
Okay. So
I might be out by a few months. I'm not good at this.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. So you don't have any children?
No children.
Okay. So what was that relationship like in the beginning?
In the beginning?
Yes.
You ever seen Notebook?
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
So
It's all puppy love in the beginning. Everyone's happy.
Mhm.
And since we're both young, obviously we don't know how to argue appropriately.
Mhm.
We don't know how to fight like adults. So yeah, it was like
You
that.
just scream and yell and go
Screaming,
with
yeah,
whatever you
absolutely,
can.
yeah. There was
Yeah.
absolutely no referee for anything.
Yeah. Well, when you're dating,
Mhm.
you just have each other to pull down.
Yep.
But when you're married, then you can bring their family into it, and so you've got all kinds of people to
Lord.
talk about then. So in this relationship, where did it really begin to kind of fall apart?
I'm sure it kind of fell apart long before I knew, or she. Choices made today are affect tomorrow. I would say the last 6 months, but I bet it started before that too.
Okay. Can you tell us what went wrong? What was the cause?
This is what I like to tell people when they ask. We were young.
Mhm.
We didn't know what we were doing, and we could not get along well enough.
Mhm.
And I think that's the truth.
Yeah.
I made mistakes. She made mistakes. We were kids. We didn't know what we were doing.
So in that breakup, was there abuse? Was there, physical things that were happening? Was there infidelity? Was there any of that, or was it just simply, truly that you just couldn't get along?
We truly could not get along, and I think that was the ultimate end of it.
Mm-hmm. So it got to a point of where you both just we're not going to win in this situation.
Nothing could be agreed upon. Even the most simplest of things would cause just destructive arguments.
Yeah. So after that relationship ends, and would that really have been the first real relationship of your life to someone that you even thought you would get married to, or had there been love prior?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I did obviously love prior, but I was a teenager. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
I was just feeling things.
So this was really your
First big one.
first big
Yes.
love. And so I'm sure that had a great impact when you got divorced.
It did.
So did she initiate that she wanted out, or did you initiate, or was that the one thing that you did agree on, that you didn't want to be together?
We agreed on it, but she initiated it. We sat down and she said the words that no one wants to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I knew in my mind that this is the right thing to do, probably.
So at that moment when she said, "I want a divorce," do you remember what kind of was running through your head in all of that moment?
Not per se. I know that I was hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I know I felt hurt for a fact. I remember the environment and what was going on. We both sat on our bed, and our home over in Hot Springs, and it was just, I was hurt. I know that much.
Did you feel betrayed?
I think that's natural. Yeah.
Yeah. Did she show any type of remorse or anger or loss the moment that she told you that she wanted a divorce?
Absolutely. Yes. We cried.
Yeah. But that crying together didn't reconcile anything.
No.
So were you together after that point, or did you separate then?
We separated.
Okay.
And then, of course, it took easily another 6 months for everything to be finalized. Maybe longer. I don't remember.
Okay.
I did end up moving
Okay.
after that.
And did you move to Little Rock?
Yes.
Okay.
I picked up and started over in Little Rock.
Okay. So you've been in Little Rock now, my math is right, 7 years?
I did move
6
away a couple
years.
times in between that, but it
Yeah.
was a few months on. Yes.
Okay.
To answer your question.
So do you have any contact with her today?
None.
Okay. And did you do that on purpose, or is that just kind of the way that it happened?
The contact?
Yes.
I would say that. I did it on purpose. I do that with every, any breakup. I don't stay in contact. If we don't have any bills together or children or whatever, in which I don't, there's no reason for us to speak.
Has she reached out to you to
No.
talk to you? Okay. So this all evolved into depression.
Yes.
Okay. And if you could, just in your own words, define what that depression looked like for you.
I wasn't depressed about the divorce. My depression, I wouldn't say I'm depressed today, but the thought that causes it is my lack of achievements of where I want to be. And I'm just recently becoming comfortable with not being where I want to be because I have such strict standards for myself. But back then, I was so troubled at the fact that here I am at 24. I'm moving back to my mother's house in Little Rock. I've got some BS job. I don't have a car. This is not where I thought I would be at 24.
So in essence, you felt like a failure
Yes, absolutely.
at the young age of 24.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did that depression manifest though? So you had those feelings, but what happened physically within that depression time? Did you recluse into the home and not see anybody? Did you?
I did shut off a lot of folks. I would say I was a jerk. Like I was probably not enjoyable to work with, to be a friend with. I definitely drank quite a bit. Of course I drink today. It's whatever. I don't overthink that part. But back then I was probably not in just a healthy state of mind, I would say.
Okay. And so, a lot of times that does depression manifest as anger.
Yes.
Especially when you feel like you're a failure. You kind of want to, in some way, overanalyze other people to make you feel like they're a failure too, so then you don't feel as bad. And when you can't get that feeling, then you lash out in anger. And typically we hurt the ones that we love the most when it gets into that point.
Right.
So in that depressive state, did you have a job that you were going to, or what were you doing then for work?
Well, when I first moved back to Little Rock after the divorce, I started working at PFG, Performance Food Group. I drove I don't know what you call it. It's not a forklift, but it's one of those loader things where you speed around.
Okay.
And loading that. And I did that at night and hated that. Then went to be a security guard at an apartment complex on 65th Street.
Oops.
That tells you anything.
That tells me a lot.
Yes.
So let me tell you this,
Okay.
a sidebar here.
All right.
My son is adopted.
Okay.
We picked him up at the liquor store on 65th Street. So
Which one?
The one right there off of 30, just, right off.
Oh,
It is
okay.
30, right? On the bottom.
Yes, it's 30.
That goes through there. Yeah. And so I laughed about it because I told my wife, we literally can tell him we found him at a liquor store, So I was always told you grew up under a rock and that's where we found you. But okay, back to your story. Security guard.
So that was
apartments.
obviously not safe.
Yeah. Now, was it the apartments that's like, there's the storage building place here and then the apartments are back there? It's kind of a Hispanic name.
The apartments were called St. John, I believe, St. John's Apartments, and they are down the road from the intersection of 65th and I want to say Geyer Springs.
Okay. Okay.
It's still not a good
Right.
situation. Let's
Yeah.
just be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, none of that around there is
No.
not anywhere you want to be caught,
And
even in daylight.
No, and I didn't have a car. So there were times where I walked home
Oh, wow.
when I got off my shift.
Yeah. And for our listeners, 65th Street is not a good area, but
It's
there's a lot of violence and carjacking, shooting, drive-by shootings, murder, drug use. I mean, it's just the plethora of evil, I guess, as we could say.
It's no bueno.
In that area. So even then, thinking about that, you're a security guard here, and then you're having to walk home. So if you made somebody really mad who lived in those apartments, they literally would have an advantage because you're walking.
Yes.
So did you ever have a physical altercation with anyone there?
Not physical.
Okay.
But it could have went there.
Okay. And so is it fair to say you were still in somewhat of a depressive state while you were working there?
100%.
Okay.
Every time I had to walk to any location, I was mad. Every time I had to ride the IT bus around, I was mad.
Yeah.
I stayed pissed off.
Yeah. And it was solely because you felt like a failure.
Yes.
In your story moving along, there came a point where you attempted suicide.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember what year that was?
Yes.
Can you tell me about that?
It is, I may have it wrong on the time frame. I believe it was during the separation. It might have been before. I really don't remember.
Okay.
I do know that I spent Thanksgiving and a rehab for suicide individuals and those who hear voices, and I don't know all the terms for it.
Sure.
But I remember that very well. I had to spend my Thanksgiving in a rehab facility for that.
So what was the emotion leading up to the suicide? If you weren't divorced yet, there wasn't presumably the anger of failing. So what was that? What was bothering you there that sent you into that tailspin?
So I've gotten so much older since then. It's crazy. It's not the years, it's the mileage, that's for sure. I would say that I could not control my feelings and express them effectively. So I'm sure my mind had like 30 different things going wrong, like, oh no, there goes the wife. We can't live without. This love hurts. There's a physical pain in the chest. What are you doing? If you can't be together, you don't even need to be alive. That kind of stuff. That was probably what was going on, just in like a heightened state.
So it sounds like, though, that you didn't really have somewhat of community with other friends that you could express those feelings to either, or was it that you didn't express feelings to anybody?
I didn't express to anybody.
Now, backing up just a little bit, do you think in this part of the world, I'll say, young men growing up at home are told we're not supposed to express our emotions. We're men. Toughen up.
Yep.
Go on. So do you think your lack of ability to express emotions was because your emotions were suppressed due to masculinity?
Yep.
Okay. So once you kind of figured that out, then you don't have anybody to express emotions to. And so it would be natural then to be angry. So if you had somebody at that point who you could go to and say, I'm just a failure. I'm just this, I'm that, I'm this and that. How do you think that would have been differently?
I had people I could have went to. It is not due to the lack of support.
Okay.
I could have spoke to my mother. I could have spoke to my father. I had my best friend, Steven. I had people. I chose not to speak out.
Right. But if I had
spoken out,
how do you think they would have responded?
There would have been love. There would have been support. They would have done everything they could to affirm me that that's not true, that, I'm doing well. I'm okay. I'm loved. You've got roof, food, clothes. You got everything you need. There's no reason to feel these things.
Right. And I tell people who are depressed a lot of times, however you feel, it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
Just don't unpack and live there. And that's kind of where, as children we're taught we're not supposed to be angry. Well, you need to express that anger in a healthy way
Yeah.
and then move on to another emotion. And so what that does for us as an adult is that we still fall under that adolescent thought of, I'm not supposed to get angry, or I'm not supposed to be sad. Or, there's no crying in baseball kind of ordeal. And so we don't know how to express it. And so then as we get older, we don't express it because we're thinking that we're not supposed to, which then ultimately leads to our mental health demise.
Yes.
Now, in masculinity, was there a time in your life where you thought, okay, I need to do something that makes me a man?
It's definitely the past couple of years. I want to say that I grew up with the notion of what a man's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of my biggest, thoughts on failing, is I wasn't doing what I thought I was supposed to do.
It wasn't, though, that you had any type of feminine equality or qualities. It was that you needed to get stronger in masculinity.
I think both those go hand in hand.
Okay. Kind of, maybe. We'll discuss that off the air.
Absolutely.
But that, when we move into those areas, though, that feminine quality kind of leads more towards the needing and the wanting of things, and the expressing emotion and feeling somewhat entitled to people, allowing you to express their emotion in any way that they want. Is that the kind of thought that you had about yourself at that time?
I would absolutely say that my thoughts were feminine thoughts.
Okay.
I wanted, and I expressed it, and then expressing it in itself was feminine.
Okay. Did you ever act out in a feminine way, in a physical, whether it had been in a relationship or in things that you were looking to fill a void?
Act out how?
Once again, psychologically,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that this is you,
Mhm.
but sometimes when men come to that point of where they're trying to shed feminine qualities for masculine, one thing that happens is they become hypersexual, and they start acting out in that way
Oh,
to feel somewhat dominant over a woman.
yeah, I did that.
Okay. Or on the other hand, there are things that people act out sexually as a bisexual, so that they feel dominant over men,
Yeah.
and so, but then also those qualities of things of where, okay, I used to do this and I'm not doing this anymore because that's not manly.
I do as well.
Okay.
That one.
So,
Not the middle one.
Not
Clear that up.
Yeah, we'll clear that up
All
for
right.
sure. So when you begin to act out, though, sexually, and I presume that, well, I shouldn't assume anything, but typically when that happens in the younger male, it's not in a relationship, it's one night stands and
Yes.
things of that nature. So that's what you experienced.
Being promiscuous.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did a lot of that.
Yeah. So in that, though, what I have found personally and with people I've worked with is that for the moment, it feels really good, but the next day you feel really empty.
I agree.
And so what happens is we kind of look at that promiscuity as alcohol. We feel really good when we're drinking, but the next morning we're hungover and we feel empty.
Yes.
And so if we're not careful, we can get to a point of where we have to have that intimacy from somebody in order to feel whole.
Mm-hmm.
So is that kind of the feeling that you had as well in those times?
Yes. In those times, yes.
What would happen when the girl thought it was more than just a one night stand? How did you deal with that?
They always thought that first off.
Yeah.
Which is
I mean,
a whole
look at
nother
you. Why
subject. That's a
would
whole
they
nother-
not?
That's a whole nother topic. I wasn't opposed
Mm-hmm.
to forming a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Never been opposed to the idea.
Mhm.
Should there be, a one night stand in the beginning, that's fine. If there was somebody that I didn't want to be with, on a more personal level. I was honest about it.
Yeah. And so I assume that wasn't always well received, though.
No.
Yeah. In this time going back to your suicide attempt, of course, you've got all of these anger issues and all of this things of trying to fill a void. A lot of time that does happen after a suicide attempt, after you get out of rehabilitation program, if there isn't support from a mental health professional, that we start trying to fill these voids in other ways. Going back to your suicide attempt, where were you when you attempted suicide?
My apartment.
Okay. Alone,
Yes.
presumably.
Yes.
And how did you attempt suicide?
I took every pill in the house I could find.
Okay.
Every one of them.
And what happened after you took all of that medicine?
It took a minute. I don't think this was a call for help. I knew I wanted to die. Put on my best clothes, and I did that. And then I laid in bed. And I remember being on the floor when I heard my roommate, who's also my best friend, Steven, coming in from, I don't know where he was at work or something. And I remember crying out his name. And he came into the bedroom. He's like, "What's up?" And he sees me on the floor. And I think I had blood in my mouth or whatever. I remember there being blood stain on the carpet. And then we had this little dog that I hated that dog. But she knew something wasn't right because she came over and laid next to me. And so he panicked. He called 911. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. And I spent a couple days there. I believe at least one night in the ICU, maybe 2 nights in ICU. I don't remember. This is lots happened since. And then I was court ordered to go to the rehab facility.
From a doctor, presumably, that involuntarily committed you through a court order.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they told me you don't have a choice, or we'll get the cops. And I was just like, whatever. One of the doctors told Steven, who told me, so I didn't hear this straight from the doctor or anybody else. I just heard it from Steven. Told him that if he would have found me, quote, 40 minutes later, I'd have been dead.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
So I'm trying to say this in a way that's not insensitive.
Go ahead.
Not to you, but I'll hurt your feelings.
Okay.
My listeners, I don't want anybody to not listen anymore. But how did it feel to be at the point of where you felt like a failure and then fail in attempting to kill yourself?
That told me right there that there's something I'm supposed to do here and it's not finished yet. That's how I took that. Oddly enough, total opposite. But I had something I needed to complete, which is why, despite going into what I would call probably, more intense depression, I've never tried again because I know that if it didn't work the first time, I'm here to do something.
Yeah. And so when I have spoken with people who have attempted suicide, a lot of times what they say is that it wasn't necessarily that they wanted to die. It was that there was no other way to make everything right. And so would that kind of be your expression there too?
No, I wanted it, I almost got it.
Okay. You wanted to die. Okay. So you had felt like you were a failure to the point of where you didn't care if there was any possibility that it could be better. You were just, you were tapped out. You were done.
Saw no possibility. Nothing.
Yeah. In ICU, of course, they send you to a rehab, and if you were court ordered, you were there at least 72 hours.
Yes, I was there for 3 days.
Okay. And then you're released to who?
Elizabeth came to pick me up.
Who is Elizabeth?
My ex-wife.
Okay. And what was that conversation like?
I think they just were trying to be nice, but at the same time, they were disappointed and disgusted. At least her family was.
Yeah.
Which they did tell me at another point, I don't know how much later, a couple months later maybe, that they thought it was cowardly of me. And I walked out the room.
Yeah. Unfortunately, being told that it was selfish or,
Got a lot of that.
you're a coward or you just couldn't be man enough to make it through. Those are all things that people who attempt suicide hear.
Yeah, they can kiss my ass, honestly. That's how I feel about it.
Well, the thing with that though is that if you had not resolved that there must be something left for you to do, then that could have drawn you into another suicidal ideation
Yes.
that followed through and be successful that time. And so just for the benefit of our listeners, it's very important how we address people who have attempted suicide. The things that we say can make a lifetime difference of, well, you're just a coward for doing that. You're being selfish, as opposed to, I'm sorry that I wasn't there so that you felt like you had to do this. I'm sorry that I wasn't there for you, because that would have meant a whole lot more to you than obviously being called a coward, but even just picking you up, it would have meant more to you if that would have been how they responded to you. So you're now discharged from the hospital.
Yes.
Your ex-wife picks you up. Where do you go from there?
Like I said, I got the time frame maybe off.
Okay.
Because I go back to our home.
Mm-hmm.
So we're either separated or almost separated. I really don't remember.
Okay.
Because it was all very close to each other, if anything. I just remember she was there to get me, and we went back to our home. I was in college at the time, again, going back to school. It's kind of a blur, to be honest. I remember I was on medications. Of course, they stuck me on several from the rehab place. Ironic.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason it's called practicing medicine.
Right? That was terrible. Oh, my goodness. Not to change the subject. One of them was a sleeping medication, and it made me have nightmares about demons that would come and attack me, and they felt very, very real. And to this day, I still get those sometimes.
Yeah. Our brain, as a coping mechanism, sometimes represses those
Mine's
details.
Doing that. Yep.
So we don't bring them forward. So you mentioned earlier you don't feel suicidal now.
No.
Or depressed now. For lack of a better term, how did you pull yourself out of that depression?
Oh, it was nasty. 3 to 4 years after the incident, it was just drinking, being promiscuous, not channeling my emotions very well, piss poor at handling any aggression I had. And of course, I had relationships after that, and some were successful for over a year. I would call that successful. And then just trial and error, I would say, and a lot of talking to myself. And I think that's made me like very mentally strong today, to where I have more stress than I've ever had. I've had more responsibility than I've ever had. And I have more times where I feel down, but I wouldn't call that depression, because it's just a mental game at this point.
So you said that you're not depressed at this point. How would you feel if I told you that you were depressed? You just didn't realize it.
I'd brush it off. I don't care.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right. But if that depression was somehow causing you to not be able to excel in some areas, would that be serious enough for you to address it?
I'd address it if it means I am not succeeding.
So at what point in your life are you really going to address the hurt that took place in your heart when you got to the point of suicide?
Well, what happened a long time ago? I've forgotten all about it. I can't even tell you half the story now.
Okay, psychologically here.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous place to be. We can say, okay, hey, I forgot about it. I've repressed it. And that's essentially what we've done. But there may come a time, and I want to emphasize may, come a time where one little thing triggers all of that that's in there. And so we got to be really careful in how we do everyday life to make sure that we're not repressing emotions that we had prior. You know, if you feel like you're failing at something, that you are able to say to somebody, hey, I'm feeling like I'm failing. How could I do this differently? What could, from your perspective, I could do, whether you take their advice or not, that you're open to even hear that, or to tell your now fiance, who is taking you away from us to Phoenix, to be able to say to her, I don't feel useful. To be able to have those point in times where, okay, I've got this and I'm succeeding in this and I'm succeeding in this and I'm doing great in this area, but at the end of the day, I really don't feel useful. Do you ever have those times now?
Yeah. And that's something I got to figure out.
Yeah. That's called depression. when we see that and we know that,
Mhm.
and there has to be ways that we begin to move forward
Yes.
in that. Regression, while is a coping skill, is not preferred.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this as a mental health professional. A lot of people would say, "Well, he's just telling you need therapy, and he's a therapist, so that's why."
Yeah.
A roofer's going to tell you need a new roof because that's what they do.
Mhm.
But genuinely not. And I'm sure that you have heard the saying that the eyes are the window to the soul.
Yes.
When you spoke about specific things, your eyes gave away that hurt was still there. Even when you said, "I'm not depressed now,"
Mhm.
it was there. I could see it. Not that I can read your mind or I'm any type of, genius or doctor that knows everything, but we can see that. And in doing those things and knowing that it's there sometimes is enough to just know that it's there to battle it. Now, of course, you're not in a place where you're chronically depressed and you can't function at all. And hopefully you're not in a place where there's just a very aggressive thing going on. Like you're not going to, beat me up when we leave here or anything. I mean, you are Arkansas's strongest man in your weight class. So we don't want those issues, but the reason that I bring this up honestly is that now that you are in a relationship, there may come times where you and your fiance and then wife have disagreements that take you back to a space that's negative. Whether that's actually what's happening or whether that's just where your brain takes you,
Yeah.
we got to be able to say, okay, I see that moment. I know what's happening here, to be able to stop that from taking place.
Yeah.
For instance, if you're lifting weights and you mid lifting know that you're about to hurt yourself,
Mhm.
you don't continue to lift, right? You put the weights down. If you know that you're about to hurt yourself seriously,
You said mid-lift.
mid-lift.
So the middle of a rep
Yes.
before it's executed fully?
Yes.
No, I go all the way.
Okay.
And then after that, I quit.
Okay. The normal person, typically, I'll say myself, if I feel like I'm at a place where I'm about to hurt myself physically, I let go.
Yeah.
And with you being more of a competitive nature, obviously you would continue to lift. Because, sometimes, and I'm not saying this to you, but sometimes we look at our battle scars as trophies, that, hey, I did this, but I tore this or I did that. But I did it. I still did it in all of that. We got to be careful in those areas. So my advice to you would simply be to make sure that you take time to really think about what you've been through so that you can not bring those emotions to the forefront, but to realize how grateful you are that you're not in those places anymore. And I know that you are grateful. I can, you have communicated that well, but it gets us to a point of where, okay, I'm not repressing this because I know about it, but I'm processing this hurt so that if something happens here, I don't automatically default to the personality that I had in that moment. And so we have to do that, especially going into new relationships, going into a new job, whatever the case may be, to know that we're standing on solid ground. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention here, as we're getting close to being done here, is that you and your fiance have been engaged how long now?
April.
Okay. So April of this year.
Yes.
And then she graduated college and now she got a job or replaced something in Arizona.
She graduated college before we met.
Okay.
She's graduating a specialized program.
Gotcha.
At the end of this month.
Okay.
Then we move.
And so she took a job in Phoenix.
Yes.
And that was, I'm going to presume that was a difficult decision for you to say, okay, I'll move with you. In that thought pattern, what did you feel like you were about to lose when you left?
My business.
Okay.
I run a business now.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to start over because that's exactly what I would have to do.
Would it be fair to say that you would feel like a failure because you had to leave your business?
No.
Okay. So
It's just a mild stepping stone that I will overcome. That's all it is.
right. But in the beginning, you didn't feel that way. In the beginning, you had to process that to say, okay, this relationship is worth starting over. This relationship is worth moving
I
away.
process everything.
Yeah.
You know, and to go back to what we were talking about 5 minutes ago, I still process all my emotions. So I don't act out on who I was 8 years ago, which is why I would say that I still don't think I'm depressed. I'm just having a temporary tough time.
Yeah.
And I understand how I feel, but I always stop to process so I don't ultimately say something stupid or act out stupid.
I wish I could not say something stupid or act out stupid. Maybe I can learn that from
Sometimes
you.
I process and do it anyway, but I still sit down and I try to take the emotion away from the logic.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned in the past couple of years.
Yeah. And obviously you have grown from all of this instead of just digging yourself deeper in a hole of isolation. So you got in contact with people where you're moving to.
Yes, I'm happy.
And that relieved some of that tension or maybe even uncertainty with the move. So in essence, what you have done is you have built community without being there yet.
Yep.
And that is so important for our mental health, is that when we do make those big steps, that we know that we have community where we're going, whether that is that as a realtor, you have a company that you're going to work for or a broker that you're going to be a part of, or that you have put together a strategic plan to open another business, whatever it is, it's so important for us to have that plan. Now, as someone who is competitive in weightlifting, it was also important for you to have a plan there too. It wasn't just that, okay, I'm going to do this. You had to prepare for that competition. And even now, we discussed earlier that you're always trying to grow in lifting and in that area. So how important in your thought, how important is it for an individual to have goals and something to always be working toward just in everyday life?
It's extremely important.
Yeah, we always have to have something to look forward to.
Yes.
And if we don't have something to look forward to, then it's easy to regress back in that depressive state and feel like nobody cares, nobody loves us, and then act out on those things and ruin everything for ourselves. And then we get back into that suicidal point. So, but you are moving. You've built community there. You're excited about it. Do you have a date planned for a wedding yet?
Wedding? No.
Yeah. So she's not told you when you're getting married yet. You just know you're getting married.
This is that tell me things. I'm going to say this right on the air. I don't take orders.
I understand.
We've discussed a season, but we've also talked that getting a place to stay and building some money and a foundation and starting our careers is more important right now. And then we can have that talk and start getting more intricate plans put into place.
Sure. Yeah. But it is a plan. It's not something you're just going to do.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the last time I do this.
Yeah. I'm not talking about marriage. The wedding is a plan. It's not something you're just going to say, okay, well, let's go get married next week. It's going to be planned out. Now, there are those of us who can live in that spontaneity. But in your state, I think it's very important that you have a plan and it's well thought through.
Concrete. And nothing changes
the
day before.
Right. And so that's kind of what we do and where we go. If you, as a person who has survived a suicide attempt, who has worked through depression, if there was one piece of advice that you could give to our listeners as to how you survived, what would that advice be?
It does not stay shitty forever, and it really doesn't. I mean, I don't want to get on here and say that get you a support system because I purposely chose not to have that, even though I did have it, and I still dug my way out. Maybe I would have dug out a little quicker, but I think I came out just mentally stronger. Like, I dare the devil to come try and make me do it again today, because he can fuck off. It's not going to happen.
Where did you find that strength, though, to be able to get to that point to say that?
Man, I could just think of the angry music and in the gym by myself at like 2 a.m. after my late night job, and just maybe having a hobby to battle whatever I needed to battle with then and there. And then just constant reminders. I have a little list of things where, it says like, talk to yourself better. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
Lose the expectations. I still have them, but I think they're more realistic now than when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it took a long time. Like I said, I'm 31 just now, I would say, getting my shit together. I don't know, because when you're in that moment, everything people tell you about, it's going to be okay, blah, blah, blah. You're just like, yeah, that's BS. That doesn't help me right now.
Right.
But it is. It can't stay shitty forever. At some point, things get better, and you just got to take it apart and make a reverse engineer plan for everything.
Yeah. One day at a time.
Literally, one day at a time.
But one of the key things you said there was that you listened to music and you went and worked out, and that was a coping mechanism, whether you realized it then or not.
Oh, I knew it was then.
And it's so important for us to, even if it's a hobby, that we make ourselves do it.
Yeah.
Even though we don't want to, we don't feel like it. But to close this all up, I wanted to say one other thing, because you said people told you it would get better, this kind of thing, and in the moment, and then you talked about now that you have this list of things that you read and use as affirmation. So many times we look to people for affirmation. And if we gain value by somebody else, then we are giving them an incredible power over us.
Yep.
Because the power that you give them to value you is the same power they will have then to devalue you. And so that happiness, that affirmation, you've got to find in yourself.
Comes from me. And honestly, I struggled for many years with religion, but every morning I've got a little book about prayers for men, and I get a lot of my affirmations from that.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with getting that from
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I don't really care about what people think of me.
Yeah.
Chris is nice. Chris is not nice. Doesn't pay my bills and doesn't make me feel better.
Right.
I affirm myself every day.
I did.
Which is why I like being strong as shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Which reminds me, I was doing marriage counseling one time, and this woman would not work. I mean, that was the thing. They needed dual income, but she would not work. And she said, "You can't divorce me. I love you." And he looked at her and said, "Love doesn't pay the bills."
It doesn't.
And that was, you're not supposed to laugh, but I wanted to really laugh in that moment. But Christopher, how can people find you if they would like to reach out, or if they're in Phoenix, Arizona area and want to buy a home? How would they find you?
I'm obviously on social media, Christopher Laux. I don't think there's many of us in this country. The nice looking blonde guy.
I'm not blonde.
And then eventually I'll have property tour videos on YouTube and stuff. But
Gotcha.
I mean, for the most part, I'm not like crazy put myself out there.
Yeah. Gotcha. So we'll throw some of that social media contacts in the description of this podcast.
Sounds good.
Also, I'm Doc Brian. You can find me at thedocbrian.com. All of my social media links are there at the bottom of our website. Doc Talks is a part of the Be Frank Network. You can find all of our podcasts there at befranknetwork.com. Christopher, I just keep wanting to call you Christopher.
Everybody does, and I got to be difficult. I really do.
Hey, it's okay. It's your name. It's your name.
I'm actually making it difficult on purpose for a lot of folks because I'm low-key rude.
Yeah. Well, Dale Carnegie said the sweetest sound you'll ever hear is your name pronounced properly.
Oh, yes. Many syllables there.
Yeah, yeah. So, Christopher, it's good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
All right. We will see you next time. Take care.